Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Turning Readers into Writers with me, your host, Emma Dhesi. I am a book coach who works one-to-one with debut novelists, but I'm also a writer myself, and I write dark contemporary women's fiction and also psychological thrillers. So I'm very much in the trenches with you as you are going through this process of learning how to write a novel, writing your first novel and all that takes, whether it be just for yourself, for the fun of doing it, whether it be you're putting together a story for friends and family and people close to you, or whether it's because you want to share that with the world and get it published so that other people can read it and it has a life beyond you. Wherever you are in that journey, I am in those trenches with you. And one of the things I love about being a writer, being a creative generally, is that it's a lifelong expedition into learning. It's a lifelong expedition into storytelling, developing characters, improving the craft that we've got. It's something that nobody ever has 100% mastery over. There is obviously a level of competence that comes and we can kind of achieve our level of genius with it, but it's something that is ongoing, on and on and on, and I want you to see that as something positive, that means that you can never fail at it because you can never be the expert at it. There's always a new way to come at writing. There's always a new style. There's always a new genre mix. There's always a new way of telling what essentially can be the same story, but bringing your unique voice to it, your unique slant to the story. And there's just always new ways of learning how to do it. And that's one of the things that feeds into today's topic, which is how to be persistent with your writing. This is something that came up for somebody who'd taken part in one of my trainings, and they would like to know more about, how do you be persistent with the writing? Because there's no denying it's tricky, it's hard, it's challenging, absolutely 100%. But as is anything new, as is anything that you've never done before, it's going to be challenging. But that's where the enjoyment from it comes from, or that's what I want you to see, that challenge, that puzzle, that conundrum that you're trying to work out through the course of your novel. Yes, it's tricky. Yes, there's lots to pull together, but it's problem solving that's part of the fun. And when you solve the problem of what a character is thinking or feeling in any given moment, when you solve the problem of what's going to happen next in the novel, then that is the fun thing, that is the exciting thing. And with every problem you solve, you get better and better at your writing. So how do we be persistent with it? Well, I think that this is something that probably isn't kind of considered enough when you start writing. It's certainly not something I thought about when I started writing, but I think it is very, very important, which is thinking about why you're doing it. Thinking about not just why you're writing this one story, what it is you like about this one story, but thinking about, well, why do you want to write at all? What is it about this crazy business of creative writing, of novel writing, that draws you in? What is it that makes you keep coming back? Because I'll bet you're somebody who, even if you try to put it away, even if you try to move past writing and stop writing and move on to something else, that itch keeps coming back and it draws you back to storytelling and you keep coming back. So I think it does start with that. Why is it that you're writing? Why do you find it appealing? What do you like about the process? And I hope that you do enjoy the process, because that is a big part of it. A lot of people say that they don't enjoy the writing, but they enjoy having written. And I want you not to feel like that. I don't want you to feel that way. I want you to feel that you enjoy the writing process. And so part of this is digging into, well, why is it that you do write? What is it that keeps drawing you back? What is it that is appealing to you? So if I think about myself, one of the things that I so enjoy about writing is I find it my form of meditation. And it took me a long time to realize this. It wasn't until I was reading Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, that I understood that that's one of the things I love about writing is, and I think this is probably the same for any creative endeavor. I think if you were painting, if you were a dancer, I certainly know as my time as an actor, this was a big part of it, that when you are creating, when you are in that moment of writing a scene, writing a piece of dialogue or a description, you bring yourself right into that moment. That's all you're thinking about. You're only thinking about what's happening in that scene and what's going on. You're focused on the characters who are there. You're focused on the conversation between them. You're focused on the trouble, the conflict that's happening within that scene. You're focused on where that scene is taking place, and what it looks like, what the ambience is, the mood of the piece. That's what you're thinking about. You're not thinking about what happened earlier on in your day. You're not thinking about what you're going to make for dinner that night. But by writing that scene, by coming in and focusing on it, you switch everything else off. And so in that way, it becomes this form of meditation, which is so refreshing, I think. Yes, it can be tiring because we're using our brains, we're creating, especially when we're first drafting. There's a lot of energy being used, but it's also very refreshing. It's very energy giving in a way that it fills your spirit. So whilst you might come away from a writing session feeling physically a bit tired, emotionally and spiritually, you've just fed your soul. And that is reviving. That has a real strong feel-good factor to it. And that's certainly one of the things that I enjoy. So what is it that you enjoy about writing? What is it that comes to you when you think about sitting down at your desk? If this was to be, your perfect writing day, you're not feeling anxious about anything, you're not worried about it, what would it do for you? I think this is a really great place to start, to think about why you want to be persistent or why you can be persistent with your writing. And when you can identify what it is that you enjoy about writing, then hopefully you will not be one of those people who says, I don't like writing, but I enjoy having written. I want you to be somebody who enjoys the writing as well as having written. The second thing I think that keeps us going when we are feeling less than 100% certain about our writing, which often happens, I think is having this idea of the bigger vision, of this bigger idea of what you want for your writing life. How do you envisage this being? What is the dream scenario for you? If you could have any writing life that you want, what would that be like? So that could be as, fundamental as where you write. Most of us write in cafes or at the kitchen table or on the sofa in the living room. I know a lot of people write in bed. So if you could have any kind of writing life you wanted, would it still be there? I hope not. I hope that you'd have some higher ambition for yourself, which would be perhaps to have an office in your house that's dedicated to you and your creativity. Or maybe I've got a friend who has an office in her back garden. It's a standalone sort of log cabin almost. And that is her office, and that's where she gets to go and work and do what she needs to do. So maybe you would have something like that in your house or in your garden. But maybe you can go one step further than that. And in fact, in an ideal world, you'd actually move house. And you'd have a home that has lots of light, lots of air. Everybody has the space that they need, including you. You'd have your own office where you have a beautiful view, either of the city in which you live or the countryside, or maybe you would love to be by the sea or have a mountain view. What would that be like in your ideal mind? How would that play out for you? And then we can get kind of deeper with that and thinking about, well, hey, what would my writing day look like? Would I Are you most creative in the morning? And so that would be your writing time. And then in the afternoon, you would get to do any sort of marketing things, or maybe having some lunch with other writing friends, or even just, your work is your writing in the morning, and in the afternoon you get to take time off and you get to refill that creative well each afternoon. Or maybe you're the other way around. And in actual fact, your creative time is in the afternoon or the evening. So what do you do during the day? Is that time for you to do some exercise, to take a walk, to spend time with friends, to catch a movie before, or even just having simple thinking time before you delve into your creative work later on in the day? So think about your own preferences, your own body clock, and how that works best for you. And in your ideal world, what would that be like? So what would your writing day be like? But let's go deeper than that again and be thinking, well, okay, so who would you want to spend time with? If you're a writer, if you were a full-time writer, if that's what you wanted, where you would have a new community of writing friends, perhaps. Not just in person, but maybe online, people who are living in another part of the country from you, or maybe even another country altogether. I've met some of my closest writing friends online, and we live in different parts of the world, but we regularly meet up online, and it's amazing. It's so wonderful. I'm here in Scotland, but I have friends in America, and I have friends in Canada, and even friends in Venezuela. So it doesn't matter where you are, and friends in New Zealand actually, and from time to time we get that chance to catch up, and it's lovely being part of that writing community and using technology to facilitate that. And that kind of helps me keep in touch with my writing, helps me stay focused on my writing, encourages me when I'm not feeling it. People I get to brainstorm with, and I get to bounce ideas around with. And when I'm feeling a bit down about my writing, I get to talk to them about it, because they understand as well. So maybe you would have some of these friendships, either in the city or town that you live, or maybe like me, you would have them online. I want to kind of expand that a little bit more and ask you, would you want to do, go to writer conferences, maybe to be a speaker on a panel? How fun would that be? How amazing would that be? Maybe you would want to be on podcasts and talk about your book, the story that's coming out, or talk about your writing process, and how you've gotten to where you are, so that you can be an inspiration to those coming up after you. So those are some examples about how you can think of this vision for your future writing life. And the reason I ask you to kind of think big about this and really think about what you would want, acknowledging that this is not real life, acknowledging that some of these things might not happen, but equally acknowledging that some of them may do. And if you plant that seed in your imagination, if you plant that seed in a future version of you, you will subtly start changing the way that you be and are in the world. And who knows, you may get to be at that conference if you wish. You may get to have those writer friends if you wish. You may get to have that agent should you wish. Putting it out there, and just acknowledging it to yourself that that's what you want, that's the first step of getting to where you want to be. And for my female listeners, I really speak out to you with this one, because I know that as women, we do not often think about these things. We put everybody else first. All too often, we put our spouse first, we put our children first, we put our employers first, and we never really take that time, or very rarely take that time to think about, actually, what do I want in life? What would make me happy? What would light me up? What is something that I can aspire to and work towards that would really give me joy and a sense of accomplishment and pride in what I've achieved? So ladies out there, don't skip on this one. This one's important. And you probably won't have all the answers in one day. This is something that you can come back to time and time again as you mull the ideas over and think about, what would be a nice writing life? How many books do I want to publish? Do I want more than one pen name? Do I want to write in multiple genres? Do I want to write a series of books? Whatever it's going to be. Do I want that TV deal? Do I want to see an adaptation of my books? There's so much that you could think about. So having that big vision is really, really important. So just to recap, the first one is to think about what it is you enjoy about writing. Why does it call to you? Why do you keep scratching that itch? And hopefully if you can identify that, it will make you see that writing is a fun challenge. It's one that you can problem solve in. It's one that you can achieve. It's one that you can keep going. And when you acknowledge that, it helps you to be persistent. The second thing we've looked at is having that big vision for your writing life, and that helps you be persistent because it means that you've got something beyond yourself, something beyond the what's here and now, something beyond that kitchen table, beyond those mornings that you spend writing in bed, that's bigger and more expansive and something to strive for. And when you have that lovely clear picture in your head, that gives you motivation to keep going and to keep being persistent. And the third suggestion I want to make to you about how you can be persistent with your writing is, it might feel counterintuitive, but it really is to take the pressure off yourself. It's to take away that pressure of feeling that you've got to have this perfect product, or your book has got to be the best, or that you've got to get an agent, or there's no point in doing it, or you've got to sell 10,000 copies, or there's no point in doing it. And you've got to achieve all of that with a first draft. That's a huge, huge expectation to place upon yourself. And I don't think anybody has ever achieved that, no matter what you might read in the press. That just doesn't happen to people. You need to be reducing that pressure so that you can tune it back into point one about enjoying the writing that you're doing. And take your time with it, you know. You don't need to write for hours at a time and get everything written in 3 months. You might have heard about people who are rapid releasing their book, and some people are writing a book every month. Some people are producing a book every 2 or 3 months, some people every 6 months. You don't have to do that. And in fact, I would discourage you from doing that. Especially if you're writing your first novel. You want to be able to enjoy this process. You want to be able to learn what your process is. You want to be able to enjoy it as you're going along, because if you can enjoy it, then you can be more persistent with it. And if you take the pressure off, then you're enjoying it so much more. So don't expect to do everything all in one go. Don't expect to be writing for 2 or 3 hours at a time. It takes actually time to build up to be able to do that. And I know this for myself through experience, that writing for up to an hour, 2 hours at a time, you need to build up to that. It's what I call the writing muscle. And when you just start out or you're not used to it, it's exhausting being able to do that, and it's too much to ask, I think, particularly over a sustained period of time. You can maybe do that on a one-off, and then you're exhausted and you won't come back to your writing possibly for months at a time. So instead, think about how you can fit this into your life. You know, take control of your schedule, take control of your diary, look at where you can put those writing slots in. So, you know, you always want to have your work in there and those commitments that you simply cannot get out of. But what are the other commitments that you can say no to? What are the other things that you can let go of for a few months, 6 to 12 months while you write this book? Because there will be things that you can say no to. You might feel guilty about saying no to them. You might feel that you're letting somebody down. But I want you to remember that this is about you, and you're allowed to kind of claim this dream for yourself. You're allowed to claim being a writer for yourself. It doesn't mean that you're saying no to these things forever and ever, but you will just have to say no to some things for a period of time until you write this novel. And so when you can find 20 minutes here, 40 minutes there, if you can get into the habit of grabbing some thinking time or jotting down some notes when you're in the queue at the supermarket, or you're waiting to be seen by the doctor, or you're taking your child to an activity and you're waiting for them to finish, use those little spaces of time to do your writing. And when you kind of chunk it down into those little bite sizes, it's so much easier to keep in touch with your novel. As one of my mentors used to say, stay close to the fire, helps you stay close to the fire because you're dipping in and out maybe twice a day, just short, brief bursts. But at least every day you're probably dipping into your story, thinking about it, jotting things down, carrying on a bit of description you were writing, or continuing a bit of dialogue you'd started. And those are the ways. I think this is a really underestimated and a really powerful way of staying persistent with your writing. By taking that pressure off and chunking it down into small little writing sessions that mean you can dip in and out really, really quickly and easily because your story is top of mind. You don't need to reread anything to know where you're at. You're already engrossed in it. It's taking up your day. It's taking up a lot of your thoughts. So when you come to the page, you can dip right in. Now, for me, this was nice and easy. I traditionally write my first drafts by hand. And so if I had my notebook with me, that was really, really easy to do. You may find that you actually like to first draft on a screen. These days, this is so doable. You cannot use that as an excuse anymore because you can get Scrivener on your mobile phone. You can get Atticus on your mobile phone. You've got Google Docs. You've got Word on your phone. You can write a book on your phone. And I know of at least 2 people who do that. I'm thinking of Kevin Tumlinson, who is a prolific thriller and mystery writer. And I'm also thinking of Michael Leron, who writes across multiple genres, in both fiction and non-fiction. They both write books on their phone because they're both busy people. And it makes me realise, they can do it, we can do it too. So find those little small moments of time. Take that pressure off having to do great, big, massive writing sessions and take that pressure off and enjoy it more. And then that is how you can be persistent with your writing. There's no big secret to it. I promise you, there's no big secret to it. It's about you taking control of your time and making it fit making it fit within your life and you being in control of it. All right, so I'll just recap very briefly. So first of all, figure out what it is you love about writing. Why do you enjoy it so much? And if you've never thought about that, take a few days, take a few weeks even, it might be, until you mull that over and realise what it is that you enjoy about the writing process and why it keeps you coming back. Think about that big vision. And the reason you think about that big vision is because that gives you something to aspire to. That gives you a bigger picture of more than you at the kitchen table, but actually what the life that you could be living if you stick with it. And that can give you the real motivation to be persistent with your writing. And then third, take that pressure off. You don't need to write a bestseller. You don't need to write the book of your generation. You just need to be part of this conversation. You just need to have your voice heard and chunk it down. Don't feel you've got to write for hours at a time, but dip in and out of your writing on the go when you've got a moment, and you'll find that a lot easier than trying to cram it all into one day a week. And if you take control of your time, you can absolutely make that happen. Now, to help you do this, I do have a free PDF cheat sheet for you called 3 Easy Steps to Start Writing Your Novel. And in that, I give you some really clear steps that you can take to take control of your diary and to give you the power and the autonomy to say, I'm going to do my writing here. I'm going to do my writing here. These are the days I'm going to write, and I'm going to write my book. I'm going to be persistent, and I'm going to finish. All right, I hope that's useful to you. I hope it's given you some inspiration and motivation and also some practical things to do to help you stay motivated so that you can be persistent with your writing. Until next time, take care.